Shalom, God's beloved, Happy New Year. I pray that we all prosper in all things that we do and be of good health as our soul prospers in Christ Jesus. God's beloved, today our topic is relationship matters, the differences in people. In the previous video, I shared with you that there are three key areas of life. I mentioned that they are relationship, health, and resources. And out of these three, the most important is relationship. The reason is because if we have relationship, we can create resources. And if we have relationship and we do not have health, it's also not a problem because when you have relationship, there is love, there is belonging, you will still be satisfied. Am I right? However, if you have health and you have resources, but you have no relationship, then life would be meaningless. It would be somewhat lonely because we have no one to share our life with. So today, we're going to talk about the differences in people. Now, every one of us desire a form of relationship where love can be felt, experienced, and shared with one another. It can be father and children, or we call parents and children relationship. It can be husband and wife relationship, can be siblings, brothers and sisters, can also be friends, even acquaintance, where we may have a time of sharing and talking to one another, exchanging ideas, and talk about life. Now, when we talk about relationship, we wish that relationship can last and they can be truthful to one another because a good relationship matters in life. Every one of us who are working, and if you ask, why are you working? It's not only for a good life, it's actually to provide for a good relationship, correct? However, of course, as time goes on, things may be different, where our priorities change because of something that is inside us. Now, today, I want to share about the differences in people. We know that everyone is different in one way or the other. Yes, we may be similar, but we are still different. Now, let's look at what the Bible says about people. Why people quarrel and fight? In James chapter 4, verse 1, it is written, where do wars and fights come from among you? Do they not come from your desires for pleasure that war in your members? So in the book of James, he mentioned that there is this thing called desire for pleasures inside us. And this desire for pleasures causes us to fight with one another. What is this desire for pleasures? It is a desire that makes us somewhat selfish or self-centered. And because if we are selfish or self-centered towards another person, there will sure be problems. That's why quarrel and fights will come about it. Now, let's look at people. Just now, earlier on, I mentioned that people are different in one way or the other. What makes a person different? That is culture. Now, let's talk about culture. Culture is a belief system of a way of life, holding or believing, having its own values and standard. Now, if we take a household as an example, and we say maybe the man of the house, the father of the house, he is the domineering one. Yeah. So what happened is that he will create a culture that he desire, and everyone will have to follow his culture. Am I right? But even so, if that domineering figure has a culture in the household, it doesn't mean everyone will be exactly equal to his culture. It will not be. Every individual will have their own culture as well. It may be very similar to that domineering culture, but it has a little difference or sometimes even a lot of difference. So you can think about your own household and see for yourself the example in your life. Let's take another example. When a man and a woman get married, keep in mind the man may have his own culture from his own household, and the woman will have her own culture from her own household, right? So what happened here is when these two get married, it becomes an intertwine of two different cultures. And sometimes these cultures may collide with one another and causes differences. Let's take an example when a man and woman, when they are courting, they are still like a honeymoon period. They enjoy each other's presence. This usually happens in the early stage of dating. So they will be going out together, they will be able to compromise or accept each other differences because the commitment is not really there yet. They do not live with each other or see each other so often. Now, when this man and woman gets married, they will be living together, seeing each other every day. Am I right? So now let's give you a example. Let's say the man, whenever he come back home, he would just lay down on the lay down on the sofa and watch his TV, right? He'll watch his movie, and he will not do any other thing. He will not help with the housework because his house culture is that his mother will do everything and the father will just sit down there and enjoy the movies. So when he is married, he will do the same. He will not help out with the house chores because he is not familiar with it, and in his mind he may think that it is the wife's job. And for the wife, maybe the wife herself also come from a culture whereby she is rich and she has a housekeeper in the house, a helper, and the helper does everything for the household. So she also doesn't know how to do housework, right? So now they are married, the wife would also sit down there and do nothing. And both of them expecting each other to do the housework. So what will happen? Quarrel would start, right? No one wash the dishes, no one cooks the water, no one do the laundry, no one tidy the house, no one clean the house, and the man will start to grumble and says, "Why didn't you do all these things? Or why don't you do all these things? Because my mother used to do them." And the wife would look at the husband and say, "Why should I do all these things? Go and get a helper, hire a helper to do it," right? So differences will come in. Or maybe the man has a mother who cooks very well, yeah, and now marry a woman who doesn't know how to cook so good. And the woman may only know how to make instant noodle. So how? Then the man will complain when the wife serves him with some food that doesn't meet up to his taste. Am I right? So all the quarrel will start from a small thing and it will grow bigger and bigger and they will start to insult each other and boom, you have clash of culture that causes may even bring the relationship to an end. Now let's talk about their children now. So children are born under two different cultures which combine or intertwine together to form a new culture. So we have the children in there. So the children may follow the culture to a certain degree as well. Why do I say to a certain degree? Because a culture is defined by three key areas as well. Now, let's look at the first key area. The first key area is physical. Let's say this couple has a boy and a girl. Surely, physically, the boy would behave differently from the girl. Am I right? The girl may be gentle, may not want to do things which are gross, yeah, but the boy maybe may like to play with mud or climb trees, something like that. Yeah. So physically, the boy and the girl would have different cultures. The boy may like to shout, yeah, whereas the girl may be more gentle. So two different cultures, same household. Now, if there's any physically challenged children, the physically challenged children would also have a different culture than from those who are uh, more who does not have the challenges. Next, we look at mental. When we talk about mental, we talk about mind, we talk about IQ, we talk about the different intelligence in a person. Yeah, even emotional. So if you have, let's say, two sons, example, a younger son and an older son, two sons. Now, maybe the younger son is a 2-year-old boy and the older son is a 6-year-old boy. So what will happen? Both parents would dote on the 2-year-old boy because the 2-year-old may be very cute and learning to talk and things like that. And so both parents would be so excited over the 2-year-old boy. And what happened to the 6-year-old boy? He will be affected. He will be sad, right? Or he may feel neglected. But of course, we wish that the 6-year-old boy will not be jealous and will also love the younger brother as how the parents see it, right? However, in reality, a lot of time it's not like that. So you have two boys, even both of them are two same gender. It doesn't mean that they will share the same culture as well. Under the mental state, their culture may differ. The third one is resources. You can have, again, two boys. Their resources may be different. Maybe the 6-year-old now is 15 years old, and then the what called the 2-year-old, it is actually 12 years old or 11 years old, right? So what will happen here is that the 15-year-old may have more freedom or more pocket money, so that the 15-year-old can go out and buy things that is more expensive, or can go out with his friends for shopping or for hangouts, right? But the younger one may not be happy because he doesn't have this freedom. And it could also be another different aspect, whereby because the 15-year-old now enjoys certain freedom and higher allowance, the parents may also give in to the 11-year-old, giving him more allowances, yeah, similar, very near to the 15-year-old, and also maybe a freedom that is somewhat like the 15-year-old. Yeah, and this 11-year-old may not be ready. Suddenly he has what called a growth that is much faster than the 15-year-old. So then you again has another different culture, right? So a culture is basically formed by these three key areas: physical, mental, and resources as well. So what will happen from this culture? This culture actually determines our emotion, how we see life, our soul, right? The soul is what I call our personality, our aspect of identity that we hold in our life. That is why in a family, when you have 2 or 3 children, you will find all these 2 or 3 children are different from one another. Think about it. You will not get your children having the same characters or personality. It is a rare thing. They may get together, they may get along, but the characters, the likings are different. And all these things is because of these three key factors: physical, mental, and resources. I hope you are following what I say. Now, let's look back at culture. Culture can be different in different countries, geographical, and even by law. So it means if you're living in different countries, the culture are different within countries, and even in the same country. right? The mountainous people and the people who live in the valley have different cultures as well. Or people in the villages or smaller towns than the people who are in the city. Different cultures. Even the law is different. If you are in, let's say, in the village, or you live near the farms, in the farm area, whereby you are more liberal to move around, maybe even ride a motorbike without helmet. But in the city, the law is different, so the culture also differs. Even the food we eat will differ. The next thing, which is very, very important, is family. Family cultures differ from one family to the other. Some families are very lovey-dovey, they will go hugging and kissing one another, whereas another family may not even touch or say, I love you, son, I love you, daughter, I love you, daddy, mommy. No, some family doesn't do that as well. So family has different cultures. The upbringing is also differs, right? Depends. Some family are more liberal, some family are more disciplinary, yeah, and you even have a home culture that is different. Now, the other thing that affect cultures can also come in physical and biological challenge. Yeah, physically challenge, maybe some people may have only one hand, right? Yeah, and even the looks may be different. Maybe some fatter, some slim, some tall, some short. So it depends again. In certain countries, certain height is acceptable. In certain country, certain size is acceptable, right? We have also the work differences, or what I call profession culture. A salesperson tend to be more outspoken. An accountant, more quiet, more diligent, meticulous. A politician always talk as if he's in charge, as if he's all-knowing. A soldier may be strict, yeah, and having a character that shows that he's strong. A businessman always ready to see opportunity. So you see, even the work and profession creates culture. Now, interest and motivation of life, these are also impact our culture itself. The hobbies that you do. If your hobby is sports, comparing to a person's hobby is gardening, two different culture, two different behavior, correct? You bring out different characters itself. And then you have also religion. Religion is part of motivation of life. If you have a different belief system, it totally affect your culture. Education, knowledge, you compare those who are educated, maybe a master degree holder, and a person who is maybe only until high school, right? You will see differences. Some of the master degree holder may be very prideful, yeah, or boastful, or look down on others. And the one who is maybe only high school may think badly of the uh, person who has master's degree. But I'm not saying that all masters are prideful people or boastful people. I'm not saying that. It seems like it, right? There is like a perspective where someone of lower standing may think the one of higher standing to be prideful, unless the one of higher standing is giving something to the lower standing. Then they may say, wow, he's generous or humble. So all these are perspective. But what I'm saying is that the knowledge and the education that a person have will affect his way of life, his culture, his belief system. And there are many other components that will affect our culture. But all these components sum up under three main things: your physical, your mental, and your resources. Now, having said all this above, what happens from here? Consciously or unconsciously, or what I call subconsciously, it will affect us. It will cause us to have some form of comparison or expectation. Let's take an example of a country. If you have a rich country and a poorer country, the people from the richer country may so-called look down on the poorer country. They may think that the poorer country is dirty, unhygienic, inorganized, or messy. Correct? That's the problem, right? Because these cultures affect our way of life. And the poorer country may think the richer country is prideful, they like to show off, and they look down on others. But in reality, all these are not true. It is how our mind causes things to happen. And all this is because of two keywords: comparison and expectation. And all this is because we consciously or unconsciously having comparison or expectation of people. Now, when we have this in place, the comparison and expectation, it gives birth to envy and self-seeking. When if you are not so rich, you look at the rich people having so many good things, you may envy them. And if you are with your peers doing something, you want to be better than them because you want to compare yourself with them. You do not want to lose to them. You become self-seeking. Or maybe because your peer is much stronger than you and you are always losing out to that person. So what will happen? You will develop an inferiority complexion of yourself, right? And this is also self-seeking. It will cause you to withdraw yourself, to look down on yourself. So what I'm saying is consciously and or unconsciously, our culture will affect us and cause us to compare or to expect. And this breeds envy or self-seeking. Now, what does the Bible say about envy or self-seeking? Let's look to James chapter 3, verse 16. It is written, "For envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil things are there." Wow. So if we are envy and we are self-seeking, we will be confused and all kinds of evil things will start to exist in our mind, in our life, in our habit, in our culture, yeah, in our attitude, our character, how we deal and how we respond and reply to people. Scary, right? That is why we must search our heart. Whenever there is confusion, misunderstanding, is it from envy or self-seeking? Very important. So what James 3:16 is saying, that there is this conscious or unconscious comparison and expectation that breeds envy and self-seeking. Now the question is why? Why do we envy or self-seeking? Or why do we want to compare or expect something from someone? Of course, there are people who says, I do not compare or I do not expect anything from anyone. If you look into yourself, if you have these thoughts, is it truly you do not compare or you do not expect? Because you are so generous in your spirit or in your soul, or because you have been betrayed so much, been broken and hurt so much that you decided to withdraw yourself from everyone and choose to say you do not compare or expect? That is a very important question that we need to search our soul. The reason for all the comparison and expectation which breeds envy and self-seeking is because there is a lack of love in our life. And this lack of love creates the differences in people. Just like I mentioned earlier, a 6-year-old year old boy and a 2-year-old brother. there is some form of comparison or expectation from himself as a 6-year-old, and even from the 2-year-old. Now, when I say there is a lack of love, why? Because love is about sharing. Love is not transactional. It means if there is no lack of love, there is enough or much love of sharing with one another, then love is the answer to remove comparison and expectation. Then we will not be envious, no self-seeking. But because we are lack of love, we find that people are not willing to share. Somehow, consciously or subconsciously, we find people are not willing to share. We began to compare or to expect. And love is not transactional. When we expect something from someone because we have done something for that person, it becomes transactional. So this is a dangerous attitude of what we call love to us. But the Bible speaks of love in a different manner. So, God's beloved, today our summary is where people matters, relationship matters. It is true, where you find people, there is some form of relationship. What kind of relationship we want to build? A relationship of love and trust, where we can seek clarification and remove whatever confusion there is, or we are not to ask questions to seek clarification when we are not happy or when we are confused. What kind of relationship do you want? And every individual will have his own culture, and they may be similar to one another. It may not be the same because a culture is defined by the individual physical, mental, and resources under his environment or situations. You see, I purposely put here environment or situations because under different environment or situations, we behave differently also. And there is this thing, conscious or unconscious, comparison and expectation of one another. And this breeds to envy and self-seeking. The reason is because when there is envy and self-seeking, there is a lack of love. And love is about sharing with one another. Love is not transactional. Tell yourself this. Love is sharing. Love is not transactional. Today, many of us are looking at love as transactional, but we did not know that. So, God's beloved, I've come to an end for today's topic. The next topic will be relationship matters. Why are people lacking in love? Wow. We're going to cover that part. Why are people lacking in love? The next video will be on 5th January on a Friday. So let's declare together, no fear, no compromise, abiding in the Word of God, led by the Spirit of God. Shalom, Emmanuel.